there's another Bernie doozy that I want to get to. This is my last one before we move on to the DNC.
Let me say a couple of things. First of all, you notice Bernie didn't say a word in response to my point that 2014 of the top 20 political givers, 16 of them gave to Democrats. And I will note, in 2016, I listened to a certain candidate, a senator from Vermont, rail against Hillary Clinton for being captive to all the millionaires and billionaires that have funded the Democratic Party. So I agree. And listen, I will note, your campaign, like mine, were funded predominantly by grassroots voters. You had a ton
I did not get money from a super PAC funded by billionaires, Ted. You did. Well, I did not.
What I did receive was 1.8 billion contributions all across the country.
Billion contributions?
Million. We talk billions and trillions, these numbers start. 1.8 million contributions. But you know what? Tonight, if people go to tedcruz.org, it might be billion if it works out. Look. There is power to grassroots campaigns, and both of our campaigns enjoyed that. But the modern Democratic Party, of which you are today one of the leading voices and leading faces, you and Elizabeth Warren represent the heart of the Democratic Party, and that Democratic Party is captive to the special interest in Washington, to the billionaires.
Billionaires. Oh my goodness.
George Soros, Tom Steyer, yes, they're billionaires. And they give massive amounts.
And the Koch brothers are just low-wage workers who are struggling to feed their families with their $95 billion in personal wealth.
And Bernie, by the way, let's be clear. Most of the billionaires on the Republican side were not with me in this race. They were with other candidates also. Because, listen, you and I have agreed on one thing for a long time, which is Washington is corrupt. But let me ask you something. If Washington is corrupt, if both parties are in on favoring giant corporations and big business and big labor and all the people with power, where Bernie and I disagree is the solution. If Washington's corrupt, why would you want to give more power to Washington? Under all of these high taxes and regulations, the working class, the young, women are doing worse. And you're saying, keep on with the policies that aren't working.
No, not quite.
Oh, make them worse.
Okay,
make them worse.
Okay, well, let's do two things.
Yeah.
Ted, number one, you ran a good campaign.
Thank you. You did too.
You were the guy who, Trump won, and you were right behind him, and I applaud you for that. But let's not confuse our campaigns. I did not have a super PAC. I did not have billionaires contributing millions of dollars into that super PAC. I never had a super PAC. I don't want a super PAC, and I'm damn proud that my average contribution was $27 from over 2 million people. That's number one. Number two, you're playing games here with words when you talk about the Koch brothers or whatever it was, 69th or so forth and so on. Of course, unions contribute, but there are millions of people in a union. The Koch brothers are two people. Two people. So if the NEA, which is the teachers' union, which has, I suspect, millions of members, makes a contribution, I think...
How much money does Tom Steyer give?
Tom gives a lot, as a matter of fact. That's
an
$1 billion.
awful lot.
Yes, he does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, and I'm not
and
here...
Soros?
Yes, he does.
Okay, just
all right. Well, believe me. All right. And that's why, Ted, I want your support for campaign finance reform, which will say to any billionaire, Democrat or Republican, they can't buy elections.
Senators.
Why would CNN correct Ted Cruz, right? Why would CNN correct Ted Cruz, who said that, he ran a grassroots campaign, just like Bernie Sanders? Like, why would they have to correct it? They're just there to breathe, right? So let me tell you how grassroots Ted Cruz's campaign was in the presidential election. Imagine, you think his average donation was $27 like Bernie Sanders? I betcha Ted Cruz wasn't particularly getting a ton of money from grassroots people. Most of his money came from big donor sugar daddies like Robert Mercer. Let me tell you how much money Robert Mercer, a billionaire, gave Ted Cruz. Meet Robert Mercer, the mysterious billionaire benefactor of Breitbart, but he's also a big supporter of Ted Cruz. The two men, this is from the New York Times, the two men share a passion for unbridled markets, concerns about the Internal Revenue Service, and skeptical view of climate change. Now the two, Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, and Robert Mercer, a Wall Street hedge fund magnate, share another bond that could link them through November 2016. Both want to see Ted Cruz elected president. Oh, how grassroots is that, right? Mr. Mercer, a reclusive Long Islander who started at IBM and made his fortune using computer patterns to outsmart the stock market, emerged this week as a key early bankroller of Mr. Cruz's surprisingly fast campaign start. He is believed to be the main donor behind a network of 4 super PACs supporting Mr. Cruz that reported raising $31 million just a few weeks into his campaign. Let me repeat that. He is believed to be the main donor behind a network of 4 super PACs supporting Mr. Cruz that reported raising $31 million just a few weeks into his campaign. And when Lion Ted got the snot kicked out of him and it moved to Donald Trump, guess who Robert Mercer gave his money to? Donald J. Trump. But Ted Cruz, that grassroots campaign of hope, optimism, repealing the IRS, putting women back in the kitchen circa 1950s, Planned Parenthood, the equivalent of Al-Qaeda, so grassroots. But CNN, you see, they're not allowed to point these facts out. And Bernie did a good job, by the way. Bravo to Bernie. I think he should have mentioned the repatriation holiday, but that's okay. So next time you watch a debate, realize just because it's on CNN, they're just doing it for ratings. They don't actually care if like the right information gets out there. Don't care at all. They're just using Bernie Sanders because they know his army of supporters, a lot of which are watching right now, will tune in, their ratings will go up, it's good for their profits, and the song goes on and on. If Bernie actually runs again in 2020, or the candidates Bernie endorses in 2018, CNN will go after them the same they always do because they are not interested in progressive, they're not interested in telling their audience about progressive ideas. They're not interested in telling their audience about what is Bernie Sanders' platform? What does history show us in terms of trickle-down economics? Not interested. Their parent company won't let them.